Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Joined by Rory O'Neill as always, Malachy Clerkin of the Irish Times, and Brendan Cummins to talk about a massive weekend of hurling. How are you doing, Brendan?
All good, yeah. Looking forward to the weekend now.
Should be a good one. Eamonn Fitzmaurice will be along in a bit to look ahead to what is also a busy weekend of football. It does seem like the championship's kind of gone up a notch this week. Brendan, we'll start with Munster because I think it's the game on on everybody's lips. Talking to the poor people working in centres and super value below in Clare and Limerick, and not a single ticket did they get, and the queues outside the shops and Ticketmaster melting down, and it's just it feels like I don't know. It almost feels like we're stepping back to 1995. It has a real kind of old style kind of Munster final feel to it. You could kind of forget that they came through a round robin. And it is actually the two unbeaten teams, so in a way you could say it is old-fashioned in that respect. Yeah,
it is. There's no doubt the best two teams in Munster are playing each other, and I think you saw the atmosphere in Ennis. I was up there for the game when they played Waterford, and everyone, the stewards I met going in, said, you should have been here last Sunday. There was some atmosphere last Sunday. And in fairness to Brian Lohan, I think there's a little narrative going on undercurrent that he's not getting enough credit. And I buy in with that, to be honest with you. I mean, everyone, the word old school has been used a lot about Brian Lohan as if it's a derogatory term. I think what he's done with this Clare team is he's allowed them to make decisions on the pitch. He's given them responsibility. And more importantly, I think he trusts them. And yes, Tony Kelly is the man and all that. But Shane O'Donnell and Peter Duggan have slot back into this group seamlessly. Now, that tells me that Brian Lohan and his backroom team have been in contact with those players all through the time when they were away, because otherwise they wouldn't have come back in with as much passion and fire as they have. So all those ingredients have meant that Clare have had a huge resurgence, and they come into this Munster final, for me, very well positioned to be the best ones to give Limerick a go. Even though I do think at the end of it all, Limerick will probably have too much. But when you talk about being angry and you talk about us being excited and queues outside centres like outside Dublin Airport to get in, to get tickets, then suddenly, everybody knows that there's a little bit of a cut or between, and it's, for me, it's going to be fantastic because it's back to the old days of the Munster Championship when they're going around the parade. Everyone is grinding their teeth looking at this thing. They can't wait to get going, the players especially. So it's going to be an epic game, I think.
Yeah, Malachy, it does, at the start of the championship, when Limerick met Waterford, I thought this could be the first of 3 times these teams are meeting. We all still think Limerick are going to probably go as far into the championship as possible, but the identity of the team who might be on the other end of the trilogy has changed over the course of the last month and a half.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great to feel the buzz of it down in Clare. I was down for that Waterford game. And it's funny, I was on the train beforehand, and there was a sort of a quartet of seats beside me, and these 4 women got on, and I'd say they were sort of late 20s, and they were going from Limerick down to Ennis for the game in Clare jerseys, and all the talk, and it's whatever it is, it's a 25-minute train journey. All the talk all the way was organising where they were going to be on Monday morning at 7:15 to get their tickets for the final. And, you're kind of going, like when the round robin came in, like people weren't even sure whether making a Munster final was a good thing. Didn't the received wisdom become, you want to finish third in Munster, you don't want to be giving yourself an extra game for no good reason. You want to get the handy route through to the semi-final. Jesus, nobody in Clare is thinking that. They are and have been from a good 3-4 weeks out. Munster, let's go and do it. We're flying. We're all in for the Munster final, and it's great. Like it is a fantastic thing for them. It's a fantastic thing for the county. I'm actually doing a piece for Saturday's paper about they haven't won Munster in 24 years, and every other Munster county has won it at least 4 times in that period. It's such a weird anomaly that, and especially when you think about who Clare were in 1998, they were the absolute dominant force in Munster hurling. They didn't lose a game in Munster for 3 years, like between 96 and the 99 Munster final. Like they were, and to go for, if you had come out of the sort of 98 replay against Waterford and said, right lads, Clare, you'll be here in 2022 and Clare still won't have won the Munster title. Sure, nobody would have believed you. It would have seemed like the most bonkers thing in the world to say. So there's a huge buzz about it, and it's fantastic. And it's fantastic that it's not like they're turning up against Limerick. Yes, they're underdogs, but they're not turning up like as lambs to the slaughter, or, you know, they might struggle to keep it pucked out or anything like that. They're going with a serious chance.
Big time.
And that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, it's very important, Rory, isn't it, for the Munster Championship, the All-Ireland Championship in general, that we at least have we don't think that the team going up against Limerick are there to make up the numbers. And that was why there was evidence for it, but people grasped onto Waterford because it was like, yeah, they have everything they need. And on the other side, we're like, Leinster, we're not convinced by Kilkenny, but Galway look like they have the right mix of everything to take on. Like, everything is being judged, obviously, through the prism of Limerick. And almost, you know, unbeknownst to everybody outside of Clare, it's like, all right, Clare, actually, they're a team who could actually put it up to Limerick. And it's very important that we have these teams to place against Limerick and say they could do them.
Look, I think that's absolutely fair. Like, it's right that everything is judged. Limerick haven't been beaten in the championship since 2019. They're 13 games unbeaten in championship hurling, and until somebody does it, you know, they are the prism through which everything else should be measured. Just to go back to it, I think, like, the atmosphere around this whole occasion is going to be unreal. I mean, it is real. It was going to be a real throwback to old school Munster hurling. Like, I'd imagine the square in Thurles will be rocking from early doors, Brendan. Like, you know what it's like when, you know, for a sold out Thurles, and just what the colour, the buzz. But there's a great buzz in both counties, and I do think Clare have a really good chance. The nature of modern intercounty hurling, like, they could still lose by 7 or 8 points, but the nature of modern intercounty hurling is you can do a lot of damage in a very short period of time that can sometimes, you know, make a sort of a misrepresentation. Yeah, you know,
especially when bodies are tired at the end of the game.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, but I give them every chance. I just don't think they're going to be good enough on this occasion. I think they'll learn again. But like, they will go into this all guns blazing. As Malachy said, there's a massive buzz around Clare at the minute. I was actually talking to Dalo last night. Like, they're getting their suits ready because they're going to be the Jubilee team this year on the day of the All-Ireland final, because of the fact they missed out during COVID. So they're presenting the 95 and 97 teams together this year to make up for it. And I was saying, Jesus, you know what? There'd be some crack if Clare are actually in that final as well. And you give them every chance now. Obviously, Sunday, they've got to get over first. But I just think, look, there's just still too much know-how. I think there'll be an added little bit of significance because the McDonagh Cup is being unveiled for the first time, as 2 great grandnieces are actually going to bring the cup out onto the field. I think that might just add something for Limerick, like, to be the first team to win it. You know, I don't necessarily think it's going to make or break how the game is played out, but there's a whole razzmatazz around this event now again, and it's just a Munster final to really savour.
Yeah, Brendan, get down into the nitty gritty. I suppose if Limerick have the know-how, and John Kiely pretty much knows how to beat everybody at this stage. So, do you think he'll have a specific plan for Tony Kelly? And if so, what would it be?
I'm not sure. I think the last couple of times they've played Clare, they've let Tony Kelly drift. They might have Darragh Donovan and one of the midfielders picking him up. The issue if Tony Kelly plays in any one of the forward positions and you follow him all over the pitches, he drags your shape out unless you're going to play with 7 backs to allow someone to follow him, like Brendan Maher did, I suppose, in Ennis today a number of years ago. But I don't think he will. I think whoever picks him up, or the half forwards coming back, will be the ones, if he's outside the Limerick 65, they'll be the ones that will be charged of picking him up. And when he comes into that area, if he comes into your zone then, but shape and structure are very, very important to Limerick. And one thing on that, and I don't, would we call it a disturbance in the force, or what do we call it, right? But they've been coming out to talk to Kinnerk and Kiely an awful lot more in the last couple of matches. I saw him against Tipperary today, and when Tip were pinging puck outs to Ger Brown and Flynn around the middle of the field, they were looking at each other, scratching their heads, going, 1 second here now, and they were going out to the sideline. Now, to be fair to Clare, and we're back to the old style, when they went out to the sideline in Ennis, a Clare fella followed them out. And so that means then Kinnerk or Kiely, after the helmet and shin guards on, if they're coming in to give a message, because they'll get turned upside down if they go into that hostile area. So Clare automatically said, you know what, you can go out and talk if you like, but we're not letting you have your little conversation. So I'm going into the confessional, and I'm going to, there's a hostility involved in it. So that, I think, is shots fired from a Clare point of view, in that we're going to do our thing out here, and if you want to go out to the sideline, we'll follow you out and we'll set the whole place on fire as well. But back to your original point, I don't think they'll follow him around the pitch. I don't think it suits Limerick, because it throws them out of shape, and that's the problem you have as a manager always. If you look out and your half-back line is halfway up the pitch, or one of them is halfway up the pitch following Tony Kelly, there's an ocean of space then for the likes of O'Donnell and Peter Duggan, these lads, to go into, and they won't want to do that.
Yeah. Malachy, it's not entirely like by choice they've had injuries to very key players, Limerick. Do you think there's an element they have been playing slightly with the handbrake on thus far, and we might see the real Limerick stand up now on Sunday?
I don't know. I think they're slightly fraying around the edges as with those injuries, with the odd suspension. They haven't had like the one real standout characteristic of this sort of, if we call them the two pandemic All-Irelands, was an absolute concrete selection. I think something like at least 12 and maybe 13 players started every one of those two All-Irelands campaigns in 2020 and 2021. Like they had tried and trusted, even down to the subs that they were bringing on. It was pretty much working off the same batch of sort of 21, 22, 23 players all the way through. That's been disrupted this year. They've had to play without Cian Lynch. Like you can't take a two-time player of the year out and pretend that it's not going to make a difference on some level. Even the sort of jiggery pokery moving Kyle Hayes up front, and you're essentially taking out the dominant wing back in the sport and patching him in somewhere else. So I think there has been a bit of fraying around the edges there. I don't think it's a handbrake. I think it's just through circumstance that they haven't had the machine in the perfect fluid working order that it was through 2020 and 2021. Look, they're still unbeaten. Nobody has been able to catch them. But I just wonder, I have wondered all year, like it's all very well. I remember after the Waterford game going, right, like they still won against Waterford without 4 All-Stars. And look, we know where Waterford went after that, and that's fine. But there's still, you can't just pretend that 4 All-Stars are nothing, and you can't just pretend that these headline players, once they start missing a few games, that leaves you no matter how good you are, no matter how deep your panel is, that leaves you vulnerable to the next ones and the next ones and the next ones. And, let's say Gerard Hegarty picks up something, or Tom Morrissey picks up something, or Galan, Galan, by far the leading scorer from play in the whole championship so far. Somebody like that, an injury or a suspension there could cause them problems somewhere down the line. So no, I don't think they've been playing with the handbrake. I think they've been going as hard at it as they as they have been let, really. But circumstances are a small bit different so far this year for them.
Yeah, and I'd also say to that there's, in fairness to the management team, it's grand when you're skiing downhill, we'll call it, like they had been over the COVID All-Irelands, right? And everything's going great. Then you have to switch into managing a round robin. But there's also a time your run element. And I think if we stand back from this Munster final, by the time they get to an All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final, it'll be a card that Cian Lynch is going to come on, or Casey's going to come on, or Flanagan will have more game time in him. So if you look at the bigger picture, I think they've managed it very, very well. They've gotten to a Munster final, still undefeated. We're throwing a little bit of doubts as they're fraying around the edges, which is ideal for if you're a Limerick background team. You're going great. They all think we're on the way down. And then we'll bring in the big guns and we get to Croke Park and Kyle Hayes ends up back wing back and they're back to the way they were, like you said, with that consistent group. And there's a certainty in what everybody's doing. So they just needed to get through Munster, which they've pretty much navigated well. Injuries back, and then they can make the drive into Croke Park then to get the big prize. So I think they've managed it really, really well. But of course, unless they win the All-Ireland, that'll really be the proof of it. But so far, I think they've done really well.
Yeah, Rory, the kind of the common wisdom was that, you know, you, like physicality. If you can't match Limerick for it, you're not going to beat them. You know, you're not going to beat them skill wise, etc. There was some, you know, remarks about Shane O'Donnell having beefed up. I think it might have been slightly exaggerated. He did come out looking like the Incredible Hulk, but he certainly got a bit more mass on his upper body. But so Clare, they're not a small team. They're a decent sized team. But
Clare well able.
But the other thing that they have in abundance, which we were talking about in terms of football Monday, is pace. They're a very quick team as well. And I think if you can get somewhere near Limerick in terms of physicality, I don't think they're quite at the same level. But add in pace, especially in the forward division, it becomes an interesting prospect, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, and they definitely have They have enough up front to give Limerick plenty to worry about. I think the big thing from a Limerick perspective, I mean, their full back line, like Barry Nash, like the way Barry Nash has been hurling, you know, and the sort of, like did Barry Nash start out as a forward? I think he started was it a wing forward that he started, and
Wing
they've
forward,
kind of converted him into a cornerback. So like you're just talking about a sort of a game intelligence there, the way he kind of sweeps in behind, gives that half back line so much protection. They've obviously got the return to form of Mike Casey, and Sean Finn is, I think, pound for pound the best defender in the country. So I think that's the key for me, is whether or not Clare can get any change inside that full forward line. They'll probably need to score a goal. And you know, but they have enough up in there. Like, I mean, Peter Duggan is hurling really well. You know, obviously, look, they'll have a plan for Tony. Tony will just do what Tony Kelly always does, probably score 15 or 16 points, and we'll all just accept it as normal service. But like, I think with, you know, Ryan Taylor, Shane O'Donnell, they have like I think Clare have enough firepower for once. Like, historically, Clare teams wouldn't generally have had that kind of firepower. I think they have enough to trouble Limerick. But yeah, you don't know if it's going to be enough to get them over the line.
Yeah,
it'd be also interesting. So sorry to see on the Limerick puck out. Limerick, as we all know, will play 4 in the full back line on the puck out, because they want to get the ball to Dermot Burns. He's the best striker of the ball. So when Dermot Burns gets it, the ball is going in deep. So Flanagan and Gallan, whoever's in the full forward line, know it's coming. So will Clare push up and play and try to stop that from happening? And of course, the byproduct of you doing that is you're 1-for-1 all over your half forward line. So you're back at your half back line. So you're backing that you're better than Hegarty, you're better than Morrissey in the air. So it'll be interesting to see, because I think it's a huge weapon that Limerick use. When they give it to any one of the other 3, bar Burns, they're running it. But if they give it to Burns, more often than not, he's getting out 30 yards from his own goal and it's going inside, bouncing in front of the full forward line. So that's another one. Will Clare allow them?
Or he's sticking it over, Brendan. Like, he's incredible. I think he's their second top scorer, like David Burns, the wing back, you know?
Yeah.
It's there is an interesting thing there, though, that I think teams tend to get sucked into a small bit of a trap by putting somebody on Dermot Burns, like a kind of a working wing forward who'll fight with him for ball in the air and all that stuff. Shane O'Donnell's a bit different. Like Burns will have to do some defending on Shane O'Donnell. He's
much more mobile. Like,
he's very mobile. He's damn good in the air for a fella his size.
He's unpredictable as well. Where he'll go and what he'll do.
And like, you know, talk about unpredictable. Nobody was sitting here 3 months ago saying, Jesus, Clare are going to have a brilliant weapon at wing forward in the championship, a young fella by the name of Shane O'Donnell. Like, he has been completely reinvented there after his time away. And like in March, like, he is an amazing story. In March, he was absolutely not certain that he was going to play. He sat down with his concussion specialist, and they had a long conversation, and he got assurances from the concussion specialist that, look, it's up to you now. I am not stopping you playing, but it's up to you. And like, he took a week to think about it. So like, he to me is nearly the best story of the championship so far, because he has been completely reimagined as a wing forward. Like, the young fella that would only ever try to score goals when he was in his early 20s is gone. Like, he scored 5 points from play the last day against Waterford, and he catches puck outs. He's so, like, he's one of the best hurlers in the country in getting the ball up into his hands. His pickup is lightning fast, and his distribution is fantastic. I think he definitely set up 1 goal the last day, maybe 2. So like, he's gonna, Diarmaid Byrnes tends to, the way Limerick, like Brendan was so correct at the start about Limerick, the importance they put on shape. The whole point of their shape is to free up the like of Diarmaid Byrnes for him to play the ball in to their full forward line. Different story if he has to spend his afternoon defending, like actually defending against a real weapon on the other team.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And Brendan, on the puck out, because I find this fascinating, and I know a team can get, you can get caught up in trying to block off every short puck out, etc. But with Limerick and with Diarmaid Byrnes and just the length and the accuracy he has, it kind of seems like a no-brainer that you have to go all in on stopping that, because Limerick, like a lot of Gaelic football teams now, they're very happy to take possession like in their own half and work it up the field. And surely, even with the monsters they have in their half forward line, the smarter play is to make it a 50-50 shot, with a longer puck out from Nicky Quaid.
Yeah, well, you see, the problem there is it's not really.
I know I'm simplifying it.
If Hegarty is under, it's 60-40, and if he wins it and turns, he's in, and he's beating the offside trap. So for me, I'd be inclined to let Limerick go short. I'd have my 8 dropping in, or one of my midfielders dropping in centre back to free up my centre back to sit inside my own 45 or the edge of the D. And when Burns looks up to drop the bomb, he sees an extra body in there, and you make him play through the middle third. But you're always relying on your 10, 11, and 12 doing the work of 2 men somewhere in there to make up for that. And that's the conundrum always in a game of hurling. It's I always call it now a game of work. If 10, 11, and 12 can work harder than the opposition 10, 11, and 12, it allows you the luxury of your 6 sitting. And so far in the championship, Conlon has been able to sit. He's even been able to go up the field against Tipperary today and push up, because he knows everything around him is, and it looks like a +1 is a new modern word I hear now for sweeper, like how posh we have to get now. But it allows him to push forward and advance, right? And when that happens, that means then your half forward line are completely dominant, is what that tells me. When your centre back can march up the pitch like a game of chess and he can cause damage, then your half forward line is totally on top. And that's what we're back to your original point. That's what Shane O'Donnell has given you. That's what Tony Kelly has given when he's out around there. That's what David Fitzgerald has done in the middle of the field as well now. He is a big bull of a man. He's another Will O'Donoghue. He's an enforcer, and he has made some difference to this Clare team. Like, I saw him below, when you're winning handy against Waterford, he was the one who was driving forward, winning ball, breaking tackles, and hand passing then to the half forward line to do their thing. So all in all, Clare have picked up a style of play that's been really, really good. And I think Conlon is cute enough to sit, if he can, when Limerick go short. I'd be interested to see if how Limerick work around that.
Okay, let's call it that, because we have to get on to the Leinster final. I get the sense, well, Rory, you're going for a Limerick win. I think you've kind of
yeah, I think Limerick to make history. They're going for 4 in a row, first time since 1936. I think they'll do it. But they met in the league 18 points apiece. They met in the round robin 121-24. I wouldn't be surprised.
You got your penalty shootout graphics ready, have you?
I wouldn't be surprised if we could be in for a long afternoon.
Malachy?
After all our talk, I have had a small nagging worry all the way through this hurling championship that we're going to find it eventually wash out as a load of mediocre to middling teams beating each other, and Limerick are actually turned out to be a fair bit ahead in the end up. And I wonder, is this the weekend that we start to find that out? I think we can get a little, and I'm as guilty as anybody, a little sort of carried away by the buzz of a sold-out Munster final, and Clare are coming, and isn't it great, and all that sort of stuff. And I wonder, are we still possibly underrating Limerick to a certain extent? And
after all this time,
I remember it did this with Jim Gavin's Dublin for a while. We convinced ourselves for ages and ages that, you know, they were, well, the pack is catching them and all this sort of stuff. So I wouldn't be astonished if Limerick just kind of stretched clear. And as Rory sort of pointed out, the end of the team is dead in their feet, and they win by 8 or 9 points.
I'm not backing against Limerick. So are you going to make it 4 from 4, Brendan, or do you give Clare a shot here?
Yeah, I just try to put myself in the position, if I'm a Limerick player, like, what's motivating you? And I think I wrote Hegarty the last day getting sent off. I think the furore around the fact that they so-called play on the edge, and that everybody, I remember with Kilkenny, when they were winning as much as they were winning, everyone said that they had the dark arts, as to what we used to call it back then, is playing on the edge these days. And I just think they're going to be angry. And I think they're going to be fairly pissed off about the way the world is talking about them. And they're going to come out and take it out on Clare. So because of the motivation, I don't think the skill or setup or ability is ever going to be in question with Limerick, but what's going to fire them up really is what I'd be looking at. And I think if I'm John Kiely inside before it goes, let's show the world that we're still able to do this, like, off you go. And I think they take the door off the hinges, and that'll be enough then, I think, to get them over the line.
That is a terrifying thought. Let's go back in time to Saturday evening in Croke Park, 7 p.m. The Leinster hurling final. Malachy, you'd have to say, since they crossed the Shannon and came into Leinster, Galway have their own bogey team in Dublin, but they're certainly Kilkenny's bogey team, and they've won 4 of their last 5 meetings. The 2020 final, I think, is the last time, is the only one that stands out there as a Kilkenny win. So forget about Henry Shefflin, although we can't, because, like, it's in our nature, it's great copy, etc. But even before Henry Shefflin came into Galway have been a problem for Brian Cody.
Yeah, and have loved it. Like, they've loved being in the Leinster Championship, I think, almost primarily because they get to have a go at Kilkenny. I think it has always.
It's not
been
for the medals
sort of,
anyway, Joe Canning says.
No, but I indeed. But he said, but they love having a go at Kilkenny, and like, have loved it all along, and have never really taken a backward step against them. You mentioned Joe Canning. He is writing about this in tomorrow's Irish Times, so I may as well plug it while we're here. But it's a really good rivalry because they sort of both go at it. They both like to mix it. You know, I'm not one to denigrate sweepers or anything like that, but they don't play with sweepers generally. They tend to face up against each other, and like, the games are generally have a bit of go about them. I think Galway, I kind of make them favourites most time they go out against Kilkenny these days, even though Kilkenny are going for 3 Leinster titles in a row. So what the hell does that mean? But like, I never, it's definitely not like it was when Galway came into Leinster first in 2009. Like, I have them as favourites near enough every time they go out against Kilkenny.
Yeah, it's hard to say anything against that, Brendan, particularly when you consider, like, Kilkenny are going into a Leinster final in the bizarre situation of having lost 2 games. The last one, which will have stung pretty badly, because it was against Wexford, and it was in Nolan Park. And it's almost a cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason, because there's often a bang of truth at them. Brian Cody clearly doesn't know, in terms of personnel and possibly in terms of style of play, how exactly he wants to set up his team.
Yeah, it's a big contrast. I think if Galway had gone through the same period of form as Kilkenny are, I think they get hammered in the Leinster final. Because Galway are a team that need momentum, they need confidence, they need a bit of fizz about them. Normally, if they win win Leinster, then you're going, God, they could actually win All Ireland here. They believe they can do anything. Whereas Kilkenny, I suppose, in Salt Hill today, they were good. They had felt a little bit hard done by in the finish, obviously, the way it ended up. Then they went out and they hammered Dublin. And everyone went, oh my God, Kilkenny could be the ones. And then they go out against Wexford. They do something that they hadn't done. Like Paddy Deegan had a pain in his arm from hitting the ball 90 yards that day, which is something Kilkenny hadn't been doing up until that point in time. So the question is, like, was it just that the pressure got to them, or was it just one of those nights? But Kilkenny will see an opportunity here of a once-off game against Galway to put a hole in Galway and win Leinster and have one less game to get to an All-Ireland final. And like, I still think Galway will have too much for them, but you can't really apply anything to do with form, I think, to Kilkenny, because in once-off games like this, we've seen it over the years. They played Cork a number of years ago, and everyone said Cork got off the flyer for starting out. Oh, this is the end of Kilkenny. Brian Cody has to go now. And after 20 minutes, the King started to turn, and by the time it was finished, they grinded it out into the ground. Take their under-20 team, went up against Limerick, even at their underage level. Limerick were supposed to be better than them. They ground them into the ground and they beat them. So it's just in their DNA that they will not let go of the rope in the tug-of-war terms. And that's something Galway are going to have to come over, because Galway will probably be 5 or 6 points better than them and maybe only win by 1 or 2 in a dogfight. And can Galway do that is the big question for me. I think with Henry's motivation and the bit of inspiration he's given them so far, I think they will have enough, but they'll fucking fair earn it.
Yeah, Rory, that's a fair point. You know my long-held policy of pretty much never backing against Kilkenny. Yeah, maybe when they're playing against Limerick, I have to break my rule, but I tend not to bet against Kilkenny. And even in this instance, like Brendan says, there's just this. It's the Cody kind of doggedness that's instilled in the team and in like the hurling culture, however you want to put it. Like Galway were the better team below in Salt Hill as well. Like they outscored them 25 scores to 20 or whatever it was. But just they needed a late free to win it, and you wouldn't have been shocked if that had gotten the other way. The referee didn't blow the whistle. That wasn't given as a free. Kilkenny take possession, and they score with the last puck of the ball, and we'd all be like, "Yeah, Kilkenny just beat. Galway were better, but Kilkenny beat them." It's always there.
Look at last year's All-Ireland semi-final against Cork. I think Cork had to beat them about 3 times before they finally, before the stake was finally driven in. Like that's just the way they are. And Brendan's point so well made in that, like, you nearly need to be 10 points better to win by 1 or 2. Like even when you're well on top, you know, like you'll never see a Kilkenny team throw the towel in. You never see them put, you know, they'll keep going right to the end. I think just in terms of this weekend, it should be a good opportunity for Galway. I think there's just a lot more pace in the Galway team, a lot more physical strength in there, and they should have enough, but you can never be guaranteed. One worry and one concern from a Kilkenny perspective is there seems to be a lot of chopping and changing, both in terms of personnel and in terms of how they actually want to play the game. Sometimes they're looking to try and play this modern game. As Brendan said, they look to abandon that at certain points as well and just decided to go along. So I think they are a little betwixt and between in terms of, you know, how they want to set up, who they want to actually play, who you know, what kind of personnel he wants to employ. And I think, look, from that point of view, we should get a better glimpse of where they stand. I think if they're beaten again on Saturday night, like to lose 3 times, and they're still be in the championship, you know, like that.
You wouldn't write them off.
That probably says it all. That says all you need to know about them, you know, like that. They're like Real Madrid. You just can't kill them off. Like, and
oddly enough, Rory, it mightn't. This is going to sound very counterintuitive, but it mightn't be the worst game for them to lose because exactly as you say, they seem to be working themselves out through the season. Like they seem to be to. Like, could any of us say where TJ and Pádraig Walsh and Owen Cody will line up on Saturday night? What
even Adrian Mullen at midfield? I find that an odd one as well, Brendan. Do you? I mean, is that working from your point of view? Do you think?
No, I don't think it is. But I think what they're looking at is they're looking at the middle third. They're not necessarily looking at positions. They're looking at what big bodies can we put into the middle third. See, in the normal world, you'd look at who's to play in number 5 to 12, and you'd line them out like you would on a Sabutio board. But in the modern game, I think managers are looking now at going, what big units can I get around the middle third to break attack? And that's why Mullen ends up out there. Now, unusually, he doesn't rotate. I think what they should do is rotate 10, 11, 12, 8 and 9, but they're all the time trying to get Reid to sit. And I'm not sure if that's working for him, because in order to play with a guy sitting there, everyone needs to really know what's going on around the middle third. If 11 is coming back to mark 9, 9's man goes back to mark 11 when you don't have the ball. Even saying this out loud sounds complex, but inside in the dressing room, these are the little intricacies, I suppose, that you need to work out. And I think that's where the breakdown has been, especially in the Wexford game when they started flooding forward. They didn't really know who was marking who or where I'm supposed to be. I think they'll have ironed that out now for Galway on the weekend, so we won't see as much, I suppose, of a haze across Kilkenny. But I think that's why Mullen's around the middle, just to give him that bulk.
Yeah, there's a lot more clarity about the Galway game plan, really, Malachy, isn't there?
Yeah, well, they're just so much more settled. Like they have the players where they want to. They have more or less the team playing now. They played more or less a very settled team all the way through the round robin. A bit of carelessness was the only thing that was the only glitch in the system in their round robin. Like Conor Cooney hits that free into the stand instead of picking his nose or whatever, and they
beat Wexford.
They beat Wexford and all that sort of stuff. I think they're a very Shefflin team. Like they work. There's a serious workload or a serious work rate in them, and they've not uncovered, but like they have it very pleasingly for them. They've had a couple of guys sort of come to the surface at the right time and at the right age. Like Tom Monaghan has been their sort of the real kind of bolter this year. But like Tom Monaghan's been around sort of, I think he came on in, was it 2018 or 2017 in All Ireland semi-final? You know, he's been around, but like
a vacancy occurred in the forward line. The guys went off to write for the Irish Times instead of play for Galway.
Well, there you go, yeah. But like there you go, and so they have a good settled side, and they have players coming through, and I just don't know. Again, like Wexford, I don't think this is necessary. I think they need to win it to stop Kilkenny winning 3 in a row. But I think like Kilkenny, I don't think a defeat is an absolute disaster this weekend for whoever loses the Leinster final, purely because like if you're going to beat Limerick eventually, and that's what you're going to need to do. I think both these teams still need to find themselves a wee bit more. I think Limerick are the only team in the competition that know who they are. I think Galway are further along than most teams, but I think like an Owl quarterfinal against Cork wouldn't be a bad thing for them. It'd give them a bit more, another game along the way, a bit more confidence in themselves, getting ready for the semi-final.
You're testing the hypothesis there of how much Galway players, how much they value a Leinster medal, all right. But I think it goes like the Munster Championship is there, and there's no doubt that winning a Munster title for either of those teams is a huge deal. And maybe this is maybe a philosophical argument for another day. Maybe Galway being in the Leinster Championship does kind of lessen the import of it. I don't know. Just one final kind of We want to see Conor Whelan back on the pitch, I think, from the start, Brendan. And if he is back and he plays full forward, himself and Hugh Lawler it'd be quite the tussle if they end up matching up against each other.
They will, and that's my hope that he'll actually stay in there, because we talk about the workhorse in the half-hour line and all that. Galway need a focal point in the attack. I think Brian Cody gives it to Kilkenny. I think Kilkenny doesn't really do it for Galway, but Whelan does. So if he starts his runs all the time inside the penalty area, I think he causes huge problems for Galway or for Kilkenny, because the Kilkenny centre-back will be looking over his shoulder at 60 yards of grass all around Conor Whelan, and he'll be sitting back, which will allow more room for others to play in the middle third. But if he comes out the field, I think that's why I think Henry's skill and management and know-how of Croke Park, that you need killers inside and you'll need goals. I mean, back to Rory's point there, in 2010, we would have known going in, having played Kilkenny, we're going to do all the hurling here, and they're still going to be in a point of us. And the semi-final, and the All-Ireland final, I think we went in a point up. And if you looked, I hadn't seen the score, you said, geez, tip or 5 clear here. But you're not but you need goals. And that's what Galway will need. A goal is nearly worth 6 against Kilkenny of all the teams that are out there. So in order to get goals, you need to threat near to the goals. And I think that's why if Whelan can stay inside, If Monaghan can pick off long range points like he's been doing, that draws the half back line out the pitch. And then when it's on, the ball needs to be floated into Whelan. And I think he would have enough for Hugh Lawler. Just a once will do, and it'll be a goal, you know. So that tussle, if he stays close to goal, is going to be key for Galway, I think, to jump the fence.
Yeah, ask you to call it now in a second, but just wanted to get your opinion. Rory, Nicky Brennan in the Indo yesterday called for a handshake before the match starts between Brian Cody and Henry Shefflin. Just bury the hatchet, preferably not in each other's backs, and let bygones be bygones.
No, that won't be happening. Look, I think, you know, like, they're probably a bit more made out of it. I don't think, certainly from the Sunday game and RTÉ's perspective, I don't think we made that big a deal out of it at all. It was actually most of the other media organisations that seem to be more fascinated than us, to be fair.
Defensive there, Rory. No, nobody said anything about the Sunday game now.
Listen,
getting your retaliation in first there.
There's people saying plenty of stuff about the Sunday game. Trust me, I know, and I listen to it all. Don't worry. Some of it isn't unreasonable, but some of it is absolute harsh shit as well. But
he's not bothered by it. He's not bothered by it.
But I think from both their points of view, I think this might be the last time they actually meet in the championship. They should just shake hands at the end of the match and just get on with it. You know, I don't. Like, we might make a big deal and we'll have the cameras ready in case something happens. But I don't know. Is it a mountain out of a molehill? I don't know what the lads think.
What do you think, Brendan?
It's a bit in that now, to be fair. I just felt at the time that it was. As you look at you'd be really like to see the two of them and all they've done. I just picture if it was me and Liam Sheedy on the line, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like, or if it was Declan Fanning and Liam Sheedy, or Owen Kelly and Liam Sheedy, that kind of thing. I just think when it's over, it's over. You shake hands and you move on. And then inside your head, you're going, I'll get you the next day. Yeah. Not outwardly, like, in fairness, you know. So sport is sport, like, and life is obviously an awful lot more serious based on what, I suppose, Henry had gone through. So, look, I think the weekend, they'll go at it hammer and tongs. The players on the pitch will want to win a Leinster final, not so much to get one over Henry or Cody, but just to win it for their own team to progress in the championship. And I just think the thing is over now. We all move on.
Yeah. Paper never refuses ink, though, Malachy.
That's it.
Well, Sunday game never refuses ink. I don't think.
No, here we go. They only use crayons on the Sunday game. I don't know what you're on about, Malachy. Right, a quick word on the Joe McDonagh Cup Final. Brendan, it's I think with the bookies, Antrim are pretty clear favourites, you know. But Kerry did beat them last day out. It was a weakened Antrim team, but there's no harm having a win over a team you're playing next in a final, really, is there?
No, there's not. No, and in fairness to Antrim, down the home straight of that game, they brought on the full force of it, and Kerry still held out and listened to the radios to find out what the other score then was. And yeah, you know, in fairness, Kerry have done really, really well. I mean, they've been the last two finals, and obviously to get back on the horse again under Stephen Malumphey and get there, and it hasn't been without its trials and tribulations, I suppose, with Shane Nolan earlier on in the year, and they've weathered all those storms. So maybe, just maybe, you know, Mikey Boyle did really well at centre back the last day. Podge Boyle has hit an awful lot of form. I know Jordan Conway is back in the group. He had serious hamstring issues, but he seems to be back repaired as well now. But you just think with the experience Antrim have had over the last couple of years playing at the next level up, that they had a taste for it. They got knocked down, and they'll be angry enough to say, look, we want to get back up to that top table. And in fairness to McManus, McCann, Malloy, McNaughton, all these names are ones that have played in the Liam McCarthy, would say. But I think Antrim, if my head says Antrim, my heart would say Kerry, although my heart will be in my mouth, obviously, if Kerry do win, because the repercussions of that result as well.
Yeah.
But I just think Antrim would potentially have that little bit too much, even though Kerry will once again give an unbelievable go. And maybe this time in Croke Park, they'll have that little bit of luck that they didn't have in the last couple of years, and it might get them across the line. But it'd be fantastic to see Kerry win this one, though. There's no doubt about that.
Damien Lawler went on to the press conference yesterday, Malachy, and he tried his best to get Kerry lad Lean to discuss the the playoff quirk, and obviously he wasn't going to touch it with a barge pole. But it's hard for us to get away from it. It's weird to go into a match where the two teams don't have the same reward at the end of it. That is odd.
It is, yeah, but it is like it wasn't suddenly sprung on them.
No.
They know what it is from the start, and I suppose it adds a bit of a frisson to it, but there's still a bit of a twilight there in that, like, Antrim are still probably going to win. Like, they're still probably a good 5 or 6 points better than Kerry. And like, I think the job that Gleeson has done up there has been, like, it's been really kind of extraordinary how he has, I don't know, professionalized them is the wrong way of putting it, but like it was a kind of an anomaly that they fell back down to the Joe McDonagh last year. Of course, they were beaten fair and square and all of that, but I think they're a team that can establish themselves in the Liam McCarthy. Not, maybe not challenge for Leinster or anything like that, but I think they belong in that sort of cut above where the Joe McDonagh is. I think between himself and Clinton Hennessy, I think they've done massive work up there. And like the prospect of the playoff with Tipperary is kind of, it only in the GAA could something like that be dangling off in the distance, like outside the realm of the match that is happening this weekend, and yet still sort of looming over it, far off, after both teams will have kind of finished their championship.
Yeah.
The Tip lads could all have gone on holidays and be called back and go, listen, you have to play this bloody playoff. So yes, it's a very GAA solution to a GAA problem.
Yeah, sorry, Eric Lean was the name of that Kerry player. Didn't want to just leave it as Lean. Rory, yeah. So Antrim, as Malachy says, are probably a kind of a cut above Joe McDonagh, and maybe, I've obviously struggled to stick, the kind of the Watford Fulham analogies in English football would be there. But are you seeing like the improvement that will because this is the idea with the GAA with the tiers, that teams play against their own level and get a taste of playing against teams who are better of them, and by that means they gradually develop and improve. Are we seeing that with Antrim?
I think we are. I mean, I think some of the results they had in the league, again, league is really major caveats attached to any league performances, particularly in hurling. But I do think there has been a significant improvement in them, and I think they'll win comfortably enough actually on Saturday. I don't give Kerry no chance, but I think Antrim have just, I mean, I don't even think, how dependent are they even on Neil McManus? Would Neil McManus even start for them at this stage? I mean, they have Connor Johnson, Kieran Clark, Sean Elliott, they have a lot of really good forwards now. And I just think, look, in terms of their physical conditioning, I think that's the next step up. Look, the big difference between the top level teams and we'll say the next tier down is the speed with which everything is done at. They can all do and execute all the skills and all the basics. It's just the speed. Everything just moves up a notch, and that's ultimately where Antrim, I think, and that's the next step for them to bridge, and I think they can do that. But look, I think they'll be helped by obviously coming into a Liam McCarthy Cup where there's another team in it at a similar level. I think the last time they were in the competition, there was only 5 teams in Leinster, so like they'll have an opportunity to actually maintain their Liam McCarthy Cup status, knowing that the one big fixture every year that they're going to need to win is obviously going to be against Westmeath. Now, they have failed on that front a couple of times where they had to maybe take out Laois or whoever it might have been. So that's going to be the big test. But there's a lot of good work. I think, look, they'll win. I think they will win on Saturday, and there'll be a nice big welcome mat for Cork then the following week.
Yeah, rightio. Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll welcome in former Kerry hurler Eamonn Fitzmaurice now to talk about football. Brendan, we'll let you go. Thanks very much.
All right. See you guys.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Welcome back. We've been joined by Eamonn Fitzmaurice to talk about this weekend's Gaelic football. How are you, Eamonn?
Hi, Mikey. How's the farm?
Good now. Good, thank you. I made the point this week, Eamonn, that the football championship starts now, which might be a little bit unfair, particularly to our northern brethren. Malachy's scowling at me there, but it does kind of there's kind of an air of an excitement about it now. It's do or die. Everybody kind of has an idea of where they're at, and it's shit or get off the pot, really, isn't it?
It is, and I suppose in particular for the 4 Division 1 teams that are going into action this weekend, you know, when they set out on their journey at the start of this year, none of them would be planning on being finished by the June bank holiday Monday. So it's a huge weekend for all of the teams involved, obviously, in both the Sam Maguire and the Tailteann Cup competitions. But, you know, for Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone, Armagh, it's a huge weekend. And I suppose for us looking at the game, we're kind of blind in many ways because we're not sure what they've done for the last couple of weeks or where they're at. I know that Armagh have injuries and that kind of thing, but other than that, there's very little information to go on. So it'll be an interesting weekend, and the thing will really start to take shape afterwards, and particularly when we see the draw on Monday morning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of one of the things that adds to it, is that, you know, the draw isn't laid out in front of us week to week, so you do get that nice surprise on a Monday morning. Malachy, starting with Armagh Tyrone, the amateur psychologist in me would say that Tyrone are used to this. Tyrone are used to kind of bombing out of Ulster, perhaps when they're expected not to. And I know the qualifiers are different now, but they're adept at this. Whereas perhaps Armagh at the start of the year may have been thinking, you know, an Ulster title, that's progress for us. That should be our aim. And I wonder whether it'll be a job of work for Kieran McGeeney to kind of rouse them for the qualifiers, even if it is the old enemy.
I'm smiling here, seeing as Armagh's abominable Ulster Championship record would remind you that they're fairly used to this.
No, but I mean, this year, I don't know, to me, maybe it was only us who thought that Ulster was an achievable aim for them. Maybe they were thinking, we're ready for the qualifiers.
I do remember when we previewed the championship, I think we all went for Armagh to win Ulster.
Not quite. One man went for Derry.
I don't think that's a factor, to be honest. I think, as I say, Armagh have loads of experience trying to get through the back door, and they have a reasonably decent record. Obviously not as good as Tyrone, but they haven't been as good as Tyrone. I think it's a sort of a one-off game. I sort of fear a little bit after last Sunday. I fear the prospect of another Ulster grind fest.
Do you think so, Malachy?
I don't think it'll be quite what last Sunday was, but the stakes are very high for both teams. I think it will open out eventually. I think both teams have more football in them than Derry. Both teams have been trying. Like Armagh were notable 4 to 5 years ago, even, to be the first Ulster team really to try and break out of that very regimented mass defense kind of way of playing. So they've been trying it for a while. I just think that the stakes are going to be very from the start on Sunday. So I think it will be very tight for a while. I think it will open up, and it should flourish into a very good game. Like, they're two seriously good teams with serious footballers. Home advantage should count a bit. I don't think it's nothing for Tyrone to have to go into Armagh into a like, it will be a bit of a cauldron.
Back to the scene of the crime.
That kind of stuff. Although I don't know that game has all that much relevance. No. But the fact of, like, this game isn't in Clonus, it isn't in Enniskillen. They are going into the Lions' Den a little bit. I think that gives Armagh a bit of an advantage, and anything certainly enough to outweigh anything that you were suggesting there, Mikey, that Tyrone have the greater sort of experience of coming through the back door or anything like that.
Well, the back door is a very different.
They all wash each other out.
Yeah, it's a very different thing now as well. There's no banana skins, shall we say, in the back door. So
there's no settling. Yeah. Like, there's no gathering yourself. There's no blowing out the dirty petrol against a Leitrim or a Longford or a London or something like that. No. You know, if you're not on it 20 minutes into the game on Sunday, you'll know all about it, and you have to find yourself there.
Michael McKernan did an interesting interview, Rory, there with Marty Morrissey. We have a story up on the site at the moment where he kind of admits we weren't good against Fermanagh, and we weren't good against Derry, and we've gone back to the basics. We've gone back. We've been honing our basic skills, and we've been working on our discipline. Which is an interesting thing for a member of the All-Ireland champions team to say, you know?
Well, I think discipline probably was an issue. I mean,
but the basic skills thing almost more interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, they've plenty of good footballers. I wouldn't worry about that, and they've added a few more, if I'm not mistaken. They've had, like, I think the time off has been very good for Tyrone in that they've won a brilliant under-20 All-Ireland, with playing some really good football with some very good young players coming through again. Another Canavan, isn't there? There's and another one that's, you know, looking like a right prospect again. And I think, have they been added to the Tyrone senior panel, Eamon, if I'm not mistaken? Their record in the back door is extraordinary. I think I was looking there last night. They've played 36 qualifier games, Tyrone, no, and they've only been beaten 4 times. Now, obviously, that goes to your point and Malachy's point in that a lot of those qualifiers were in an era when you had an opportunity to get a tune-up match before you really went into the serious stuff. They're not going to have that opportunity on Sunday. I think Armagh, funnily enough, from my money, Armagh are actually under more pressure. I think if Armagh lose this game, they're nearly I think there's going to be a huge upheaval in loads of jobs actually in Ulster at the end of this championship. And I think there's an awful lot on the line for Kieran McGeeney. I think, like, if he goes through this championship effectively with 2 games and loses both of them again, you know, I would imagine the catcalls within Armagh will start to grow quite loud. So he's under a lot.
First time people have said that, though, Rory. Like,
yeah.
But I don't know that there's an awful lot of external pressure on him up there.
Wouldn't you think so?
I don't know that there is now, because you know, you're talking about Kieran McGeeney. Like, if it was somebody else, yeah, fair enough. But like, is he the longest serving manager in the country?
Colin Collins is, isn't he?
Is he? But they're more or less the same.
I think they're about the same, like 8 or 9 years.
I don't know. Like, fair enough. Like, you know, if they get beat out the gate at home against Tyrone, you know, maybe pressure comes on. But I haven't heard, like, Armagh fail every year in the Ulster Championship.
Can they continue to keep doing that though?
I don't know. But what I'm saying is that it happens every year. Every Ulster team has been to an Ulster final, apart from Armagh, since the last time they were in one. Like, they keep failing up there, and I don't know that there never appears to be any great sort of move to get McGeeney out or anything like that, because he is such a totemic figure in the county. And look, what, 8 weeks ago they were the most exciting team in the country in the league. True. Right? They were, you know, they beat the Dubs in Croke Park. They were playing fantastic football. I don't know. Going out of the championship to the All-Ireland champions, I'm not entirely sure that means there has to be a heaver. And
Eamon, I wanted to ask you just kind of about the psychology of knockout football, because Tyrone. Had Tyrone beaten Derry, they would have been 4 wins from an All-Ireland final. Tyrone lost to Derry, and there's still 4 wins from an All-Ireland final. The only thing that's really changed is the route and the lack of any kind of a safety net. Is that something you need to factor in when you go from the provincial to the All-Ireland series? Does it affect how a team plays, do you think?
I don't think so, Mikey. I just think it brings a bit of an edge the week of a game that, you know, the safety net is gone, and the realistic thing of your season being over the following week is there hanging over you. So you know as a group that you need to perform. But I think that's going to suit Tyrone. You know, I remember, I think I mentioned it before, that Kieran McGeary, the night he got the Player of the Year award, when Joanne was interviewing him, that he mentioned, "Oh, we're hungry for more success, we're mad for more," and everything else. And I remember kind of smiling to myself at the time and saying, "You don't know that yet, Kieran. You think that absolutely you want more success, of course, but you actually don't know that until the gun is to your head and you're under pressure in a big game." And their hunger wasn't there against Derry. It wasn't. They were frustrated. They were a pale shadow of the team from last year. But that defeat, the criticism that would have followed, the circling of the wagons, the momentum from the under-20s and the young lads coming in after winning an All-Ireland and giving life to training, that's all good from the Tyrone perspective. So we'll find out now on Sunday, do they really have the hunger and the stomach to go at it again? Because Armagh, you know, are going to be a tough nut to crack at home, and they have a great record in the athletic grounds over the last couple of seasons. But I just worry from Armagh's perspective. I think Kieran Mackin has been a huge loss for them. I think he was brilliant during the league when they were going well, and I think he got a serious enough eye injury, so I don't think he's in line to return. So he was very effective for them. And Rian O'Neill's form then as well, that he was carrying injuries. He had the whole thing of the suspension, it being overturned and all that. For Armagh to win, they need Rian O'Neill playing well. And I would say playing well close to goals, because early on in the league when they were flying, he was playing close to goals and they were direct and it was very effective. And then as the league was going on, he was drifting all over the field in a kind of almost Michael Murphy-esque role, whereas I think Rian O'Neill going well close to goals makes Armagh a very dangerous team. So we'll see, but it's going to be a brilliant game, and it's going to be a real championship game, full athletic grounds, atmosphere, belting, physicality, a few scores, cards, no doubt. It will be good.
Yeah, call it then, Eamon. We have to get on to the next one. Who do you think's going to win it?
I hate this calling stuff, Mikey. My record is terrible. I'm useless at it. You love when we have to go calling it because your record has been quite good. Call it. Jeez, I don't know. I think we're very blind to what Tyrone are going to emerge. If the Tyrone of last year are there, they'll be very difficult to beat. But I'll give Kieran Donaghy another backing. I'll go with Armagh again.
Malachy?
Yeah, well, sure. Anybody that's calling this with confidence is spoofing, really.
Spoof.
Like you've got to, if you want to put something on the line. I even though Derry have gone and won Ulster, so you absolutely can't crab Derry in the slightest. That game against Tyrone turned on a sort of a 5-minute period where Con Kilpatrick got sent off and they gave away a penalty. I'm not saying that it was an unfair result or anything like that, but the game got away from Tyrone very, very quickly that day. And had it settled and had they got to half time, a point down or a point up or something like that, it wouldn't necessarily have been outrageous to see them turning it around. So I'm going to give them another shout, just on the basis that they have a body of work, and that was an odd kind of game, and so I think they may have
Rory?
themselves in the meantime.
I think I do actually think those under 20s and that win will just add a little bit more wind into the Tyrone sail to get them, and I think it'll have improved.
It should have improved training anyway.
The atmosphere around training and everything around training, and I think that'll just
better to be. It's
maybe, but like with no confidence, you just wouldn't have a clue.
That's the thing, Rory. It's better for them to be talking about the handful of young lads that they've got in than the 7 lads who left after.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think Tyrone will win, for the record. On to the other then Division 1 clash, Eamon, which is no less fascinating. The meeting of Mayo and Monaghan.
Very first time.
Very first time in Championship, which is bizarre when you consider they play each other pretty much every spring. They're almost perennial Division 1 teams. Below in Castlebar, Eamon, and I'll just write it off. Like Mayo won quite well, 210 to 111 in the league in Clonus. But I think in football in Ireland at this stage, we've learned to take all league results with a pinch of salt this year.
Yeah, the one line I would draw between the league game and now, Mikey, is that there was a pattern that started in that game for Monaghan that has kind of continued since, and that's being very wasteful in front of goals. I think that they did something like 3 points maybe from 13 or 14 chances in the second half against Derry the last day out. They had 33 shots, they had 17 points. And for a team, when they were in their pomp, they were very consistent with their shooting, very economical. McManus was so brilliant as maybe off 7 possessions, he gets 6 points or whatever. But that pattern has continued for Monaghan, and for them to win, they're definitely going to have to improve that. And for Mayo, their record in McHale Park isn't great. They've had the issues with the injuries, but one thing with Mayo, I just love to see something different from them. You know, we all appreciate how good they have been over the last 10 years and more, how competitive, how close they've been, but they haven't got the job done. They haven't got the job done doing more or less the same kind of style of game, the hard running game, the high octane stuff, that when it's going well and the crowd are behind them, they're almost unbeatable, but they haven't won the All-Ireland in that time. So I think early on in the league this year, they were trying to kick the ball more. I remember the night in Croke Park, the Mayo Dublin game, they certainly kicked the ball into the final third more, and it was effective and it worked and it was good. But by the time the kind of championship came around again, they'd reverted to type and they'd reverted to their old style game. So again, they've had probably the longest break, I'd say, in terms of a team waiting all the way back to the Galway game. They've had a lot of time to get themselves right. And
apparently their injury situation has gotten worse in that time, Eamon, from what I hear. Is that right? Yeah. Like they've lost Ryan O'Donoghue now as well. And Rob Henley, I don't think, is anywhere near fit. He's a huge part of their armory. So
and he was very good in that league game as well, Rory. He had a couple of 1-on-1 saves that day. So yeah, so I don't know. Again, the fact we haven't seen them, but I just would love to see something different from them, something tactically different, a different approach, because, you know, what they've done so far hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, they were probably scared off a kicking game by Galway's 2 sweepers, which might have shocked them a little bit. Monaghan aren't going to acquiesce any more to a kicking game than Galway did. So it would be a big surprise, as Eamon says, if Mayo do come with a different tactic for this Monaghan team.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to know what Monaghan will turn up either. Monaghan were very naive against Derry. They really didn't. They didn't pack their defence in the old style that they might have done in years gone by.
And Derry would have let them do that.
But like they didn't. Like they played a 3-man full forward line, which you know, you gotta go.
You're still recovering from that idea.
You gotta go a long way back to find a Monaghan team that did that. So it will be interesting to see how they turn up on the weekend. I think, yeah, you're right about Mayo's, or Rory's right about Mayo's injury list to a certain extent. Although Paddy Durkin is back.
Paddy Durkin is back, yeah,
which is huge. A big help, yeah. And it looks like Oisin Mullen will make it. So that's big as well. You know, those are you know, they're serious.
But has Cillian O'Connor had another setback apparently, or has
I didn't hear that now. That would no. If Cillian O'Connor has a setback and Ryan O'Donoghue's out, then that really tips. And
they're already obviously missing Tommy Conroy from the beginning of the season. Like they've had very bad luck.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game. Like Monaghan I don't think Monaghan have any real injury worries. The one bright spark from Monaghan in that Derry game was a return to form for Niall Cairns in the middle of the pitch. He was an All-Star nominee in 2018, but he missed a year or two, sort of a year. Having him back around the middle would be a big plus for them. Eamon was 100% right. I was at that league game in Clonus. Monaghan absolutely should have been 1-3 to a point up after 10 minutes. Like they just butchered so many chances that day, and it was part of a trend. It was funny. They really didn't find their shooting boots until more or less the last day against Dublin. And it was enough to keep them up. So it's funny, I was on a Mayo News podcast last week and they were having me on as the token Monaghan man, and me and the Mayo lads tried to outdo each other for an hour about how bad our counties are and how woeful our prospects are going into this game, to the point where we'll all be quite surprised if either team turns up actually.
Even gets off the bus
on Saturday night. It seemed Mayo are favourites with the bookies. If they are missing as many as the sort of rumoured injury list says, I think Monaghan have a huge chance because they're very good. Look, they're best as underdogs. They have a full panel. They've no real injury worries. They've had a lot of time to digest the Derry defeat. The problem, as always, with Monaghan is that, and they never do very much outside Ulster. Like, they're good at beating Division 3 and 4 teams outside Ulster. They have been down through the years, but like their signature wins down the years were against like Kildare and Galway in the Super 8s, and like Galway were already through to the semi-final that time. Like, they don't tend to beat non-Ulster Division 1 teams in the championship. So
you're just reciting the stuff you said on the Mayo News website, Mayo News podcast,
but
now, aren't you?
Like, this is but honestly, like, you know, when you sit back from it and you look at, you know, they have a reputation as this Division 1 team, these great survivors in the league, but when it actually comes to championship, like, I think they're the only team in Division 1 that have beaten Dublin, Kerry and Mayo home and away in the league in the last sort of decade. And yet they didn't keep it kicked out to Dublin when they met them in All-Ireland quarterfinals. They had a chance to beat Kerry in 2018 in Clonus and couldn't do it. So that's always my with my Monaghan fans hat on, worry about them, that when it comes down to it in championship, Mayo are a team with a body of work, and Monaghan really aren't, you know.
Okay, so you're going for a Mayo win then, I think, Malachy.
I kind of think so, like, until proven otherwise. I kind of think so.
I would be from the school of thought that believe half of what you see and none of what you hear when it comes to injury news, so I'm also going to go for a Mayo win. How about you, Rory?
Yeah, I think Mayo, just look, it's probably more at stake. If they get a goal, maybe Eamon mentioned, you know, for both teams, you know, a little bit wasteful in front of goal. And then with Mayo, you would like to see them mix it up, change it up. But if they have, you know, if any half decent forward line gets picked, tog out, I think Mayo, just there's more on the line for them, given their season. They've obviously had a little bit more time to prep it as well. And home advantage surely worth something, given the fact.
And have conceded 5 goals in 2 games as well, like.
And haven't scored a goal. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Mayo to progress.
Okay, this is the last game I'm going to ask you to tip, Eamon, I promise. The rest of them we'll just discuss. We won't go for tips.
I'm going to believe the injury news and give the kiss of death to Monaghan.
Oh God, you're doomed, Malachy. You're doomed. Just a word on Cork Feel Loud, Rory. What are you hearing?
Revenge for 57.
Yeah. What are you hearing? How are things below on Lee's side?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, very good win last night with the minor footballers, which will be a bit of a shot in the arm. You know, we've lost Flahav, which is a huge blow, because you would imagine he would have been probably detailed to pick up Sam Mulroy, and he's a pretty good man marker. I think from Cork's perspective, the fact the game is in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, bit odd. Why wouldn't they just go back to Páirc Uí Ring? It's kind of a more natural home for, because
they can use it. God damn it, it's there now. They have to use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be an awful crowd, terrible crowd at the game, but it's a graveyard slot on a Saturday afternoon. That's not surprising either. But look, it's a good opportunity for them to get a win in the championship, which, to be honest, from Cork football's perspective, would be welcome, regardless of who it's against. And I think, look, in fairness to them, and I know people might say, like, it's clutching at straws, but for 15 minutes, they were competitive against what I still regard as the best team in the country. And I think if they can bring that obviously they're not going to be facing the same kind of quality. I think if they can bring that for, you know, a more sustained period of time and see it right through to maybe 65, 70 minutes, I think they'll have enough to get the job done at home.
I don't know, Eamon, a good chance for Cork to win a championship game. They're playing a Mickey Hart managed team in the qualifiers.
Yeah, and they've, I suppose, they played a league game below there. I don't know, was it last year or the year before in Páirc Uí Chaoimh? Yeah. And it was a right shootout, and it was you know, in the end Cork came good in the end. But look, you'd expect Cork to build on what they did against Kerry. You know, that they did put in the 50 minutes, worked very hard. I imagine the likes of Ian Maguire and Powter had a chance to recover a bit further from those injuries, and they'll be further down the road. And once they're fit, you give them a great shout. But at the same time, you'd expect Louth to react to their performance against Kildare as well, because that was probably their most disappointing performance of the year so far, because up to that point, they played well in nearly all of their games. So yeah, it should be a good game, and the Páirc Uí Chaoimh angle is interesting, you'd think, after all the fighting and the stance that was taken and the fact that they won the game, and the small crowd in Páirc Uí Rinn would still lend to some bit of an atmosphere, whereas in Páirc Uí Chaoimh they're going to be invisible, but it's a lovely pitch to be playing on for the players, so that's good.
Well, that might be the reason. Malachy Clare v Meath, very close game in the league, which we'll just discount straight away. Interestingly, I suppose, for either of these teams, a win, they're one game away from an All-Ireland quarter-final, which for either team would have to be recognised as a successful season, even if Meath have been castigated all season long. They're 2 wins away from an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Yeah, I don't see them winning 2 of them. I'm not sure I even see them winning 1 of them, to be honest with you. There is an interesting angle between these 2 teams. Like, anytime we talk about Clare, we all fall back on the very, Colin Collins doing a great job, and isn't it great to see them, hanging with the big guys and all that sort of stuff. They actually have a really terrible record against Meath, a really terrible recent record. They've lost 5 games in a row against them. And you're just kind of going, like, Meath are no great shakes and have been no great shakes through those 5 years. And I kind of see them at training this week going, right, this is our time, lads. We can't get...
No one beats Clare 6 times in a row.
Nobody who isn't Kerry beats Clare 6 times in a row, And so that to me is the angle here. And me, they're just not... They just haven't done it and haven't kicked on. The relegation from Division 1 that they had a couple of years ago just seemed to knock them sideways altogether. And I don't see... I think Clare can do this, and I think it's probably about time that they do it. And I would see them as being more 2 games away from an All-Ireland quarterfinal than me.
Yes, I think so too. But, factually, so are Meath. But I agree with you that it seems a longer shot. We're at the Tailteann Cup quarter-final stage. Those of you who listen to Monday's podcast will know that Pat Spillane is very enthusiastic about the Tailteann Cup now. Actually, Pat Spillane was very enthusiastic about everything on Monday. He'd definitely taken his vitamins. But... the Tailteann Cup, and someone said, Jesus, the mood on this thing swings, like it vacillates wildly. Last week was a good week for the Tailteann Cup because a Division 4 team, Carlow, beat a Division 4 team, Tipperary. Well, they're now Division 3. Eamon, I kind of shrugged my shoulders because I want a bit of I want novelty, I suppose, from a new competition. And for Cavan, Leitrim Sligo, and Carlow Westmeath, don't jump out as, wow, this north-south thing has really scuppered it, but I'm not wanting to complain about it now. I do kind of want to see, for which of those counties, I guess they've all reached the quarterfinals now. They all have to be targeting it. Perhaps for New York, it's, a bit much to expect to win it. But for everybody else now, I guess, you're 3 games from a trophy, and that has to mean quite a lot for any county, not just the counties who are, in the Tailteann Cup.
Oh, big time. And I think that's so far, and particularly for the teams that are left, Mikey, that's been the approach, and that they are enthusiastic about it and they're ambitious to win it. So the New York Offaly game is the novelty one for you, Mikey, there. So that was especially for you.
That was for me.
Saturday. Yeah. But look, I think looking at it, I think anyway that Westmeath, Cavan, Offaly, you'd be expecting those 3 teams to advance to the semi-finals, and possibly then as well that you'd have whatever 2 of those 3 making it into the final then as well, and that you'd end up with a good final. I think, not that it's Cavan's to lose, but they're probably a step further down the road than a lot of the other teams, and they've left their league form well behind them, and they've been decent in the championship. So now, having seen Donegal last weekend, then you're always looking at those farm lines. But I think the Offaly New York game is obviously going to be a very interesting game on Saturday. But I'd be surprised if Offaly, Westmeath, and Cavan aren't in the draw on Monday morning. Yeah,
I think so. I want to make a joke about New York lads playing on grass and how they'll react to that, but that's not fair. It's unusual for a champion. Let's be honest, they played every championship game back until when, Malachy, you are a New York correspondent, you know all these things. When was the last time they played on Irish sod?
I am not entirely sure they ever have in championship anyway.
No, probably not.
I wouldn't be held to that. It's funny, Mikey, I was at Offaly and Wicklow last Sunday.
Wicklow were awful, I'm told.
They were, well, yeah, but Offaly aren't bad, like, you know, for that level. Yeah. Wicklow were grand. Wicklow lost a couple of guys through injury. But like that was Wicklow's fourth game of the championship.
Yeah, New York were here in 2001 for Connacht's game against Roscommon in the Hyde. So there we go.
We'll go back, but
go.
Like
Impressive, Rory.
When's the last time? Like Wicklow haven't played 4 championship matches in a long time, if ever, you know. And they were talking afterwards. They were not obviously raging to have been beaten, and it was a kind of a non-performance. They only got 2 points from play all day, but like they were glowing is overdoing it about the Tailteann Cup, but they were absolutely delighted to have got, this is our level, this is what we're at. Offaly are gunning for it. They're a decent team. Johnny Maloney was fantastic for them at centre back. Rory McNamee pretty good at centre forward. Niall McNamee is Niall McNamee. They're a good side, and they only lost one player. One player stepped away from the panel after their Leinster Championship defeat, and like they lost a game that they would have expected to win in the Leinster Championship. So, you know, if there was scope there for anybody who was disgusted at the idea of the Tailteann Cup to ship up and ship out. So they're like the teams that are left in it have been giving it a go. Like, look at the Cavan team that turned up for its first game. That's the Cavan team, you know. And
Mickey went back at his idea of a development competition. He seems to,
but like even Offaly are using it a bit. Like Offaly have brought through a good few of the under 20s, and you can see actually, you know, that they're still a bit off it physically, but that they have plenty of football in them. And I think Eamon's right. Like Westmeath, Offaly, Cavan, they'll be the ones fighting for the end of it.
Possibly. I have some Leitrim friends who are rubbing their hands in glee that they got Sligo. I said, "Are you not bored playing Sligo?" I said, "No, they're the only ones we could have bet." So, there's confidence in Leitrim.
But this is a huge game because the semi-finals are in Croke Park.
Yeah,
and on the telly.
And on the telly, you know.
It's all important. Speaking of the telly, there's lots on this weekend, everybody. There's 4 games on RTÉ. John McDonagh Cup Final, the Leinster Hurling Final. On Kerry. We've already discussed that, Eamon. No. Don't be jumping out of your lane.
Did you ever tog out for the Kerry hurlers, Eamon?
I did.
Did you? Fair play.
Yeah, I was a sub in 1996. It was my first year out of minor. I was a sub for the one championship game that summer against Pat Fox and Nicky English.
Shaney Max.
Tipperary, and I don't remember the score, but it was comprehensive. No, I didn't get a run. I played county football championship then the following day. It was Saturday evening in Tralee.
You could have turned the tide if they brought you in, Eamon.
no fear, Mikey.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you know, you win that, you get another crack off Tipperary, having beaten them once already this year. Then Sunday we've got the Munster Hurling Final and the Armagh Tyrone game.
Eamon's come up there, looking forward to it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, can't wait.
There's a plethora of games on GA Go, and you got Mayo Monaghan on Sky, so you can spend the entire weekend pretty much watching GA, and obviously you can listen to it on Radio 1 Saturday and Sunday Sport, and you could follow it with our live blogs, reports, and everything else on the RTÉ website and the RTÉ News app. So we'll be back on Monday to look back on all the stuff, which will take a while, obviously. We'll have to give Pat Spillane more vitamins if he's going to be on. So we will chat to you then. Good luck. Thank you.
Crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar.